Welcome to this side event during Nordic Edge. This week in Stavanger we have a sustainability convention going on, and we have the pleasure of welcoming you to this side event called Standing Still, Moving, and at What Pace. Together with me I have Stine Hattestad from KPMG Impact, and also we will have 4 guests that will visit us where we will start reflecting around the sustainability issues. There's no doubt, Stine, that sustainability is really on everybody's agenda. And you even had a keynote at the Nordic Edge conference earlier this day, where you said that this week is also the UN Assembly, and we are moving towards 2.7 degree increase in the climate. What are your take on this, Stine?
My take is that we really need to speed up. And what I was talking about earlier today, Rana, and what we are also going to talk a bit about today, it's the mobility. It's moving around, and it's also very specific in a large degree, moving around in cities. Mm-hmm. Because we have a lot of challenges out there, but definitely the cities are going to be the most pressing issue that we really need to solve. Mm-hmm. Like when in 2050, 2/3 of the people in the world are living in the city. Yeah. And we have to move around.
Yeah, well, there's no doubt, Stine, that the pressure on urban mobility, the pressure on the resources that we actually are having, we need to think in a total different way. Yeah. We not only need nudging, most likely we will need some really forces in order to drive that change. And luckily we have some guests with us today. And I would like to welcome the first guest onto the stage. This is Heidi. Heidi from Norled that is coming here. Welcome, Heidi, to our humble small stage here. Please tell me about it. Norled. What kind of company is that?
Thank you for the invitation. Norled is one of the large ship-owning companies in Norway, operating ferries and express boats around the whole nation. And we have been a pioneer within the green shift, and we will like to continue to be a pioneer within the green shift.
Lovely.
But where are you standing now then, Heidi? You say you are a pioneer, but I would be more interested to hear what do that mean, and what are your journey that you're on, and where are you heading off?
Yeah, I would say we are on our way. Yeah. In 2015, we started to operate the world's first electric ferry, MF Ampere, and it really changed the ferry sector. Next year, it will be 80 electrical ferry operated on the Norwegian fjords. It's like a significant journey down there. And also this winter, it was decided by the government that all new tenders within our sector will be zero or low emission solution 2023 for ferries and 2025 for express boat. And I would say that the next big leap we have to take as an industry, it's on express boat.
But give us a more explanation about the express boat so that people understand what kind of services is that.
Ferries are typically transporting both people and trucks and cars. We also have passenger ferries. On express boats, we are mainly transporting people with higher speed. Yeah. So it's come quickly from A to B.
So basically what we're talking about, Heidi, is connecting, these dots where people commute in their everyday life, and the rapidly change that also need to be addressed here. The way you guys see it, because you work with this every day, Heidi, what are the real challenges in order to scale this really fast, so basically that we can see an effect on when a change of our attitude, or my attitude, Stine, because I am the guy that needs to be nudged into that. What are the real challenges that you guys are facing at this time?
I think in Norway, public are buying services for 600 billion Norwegian kroner.
That's a huge number.
It's a huge number. So we are offering services to them. And it's really that those are our clients. So which requirements they are putting in place is truly, truly important. And that's also what they put in place this winter. But we have to move with speed on that. We have to adhere to it. And I think we have solved for ferries, we have solved some of the big leaps on the electricity. Then you have long distances, and for long distances, battery is not enough.
No.
Then you have to combine hydrogen and battery, and that we're working on now. And also, before I'm going more into hydrogen, I could give another example. In the Oslo fjords, we have passengers ferries, and they take typically 600 people per vessel, and we have been successful in retrofitting those vessels. They used to run on LNG, now they are fully electric. And next year, we're going to start operating the world's first hydrogen ferry. And the vessel is MF Hydra. It's already operating, but not on hydrogen yet. We wanted to spend some more time. We had some issues with the pandemic, and then we wanted to spend some extra time on the safety tests and also get the procedure in place. But it will be up and running next year, and then we need to take it to the next.
But with all respect, Norway is a small country. How can we scale these changes that you guys are working with? The changes that is needed on the policy side. How can we scale this globally, Heidi?
I think we have the waterways are really we need to use them more. I think if we move quick, it's really a big question for us whether we can move quicker, cheaper, and also more environmental friendly, using the waterways more instead of building more giant highways.
Because this is a big question, you know, because it's moving and see the whole picture.
Yeah.
So if you use the water, that's probably around a lot of cities globally, to move people fast, because that is one of the things that we all want to do. We still want to move fast. We still want to move at the same time. We haven't changed. So how do we scale up and at the same time using the possibilities that's there?
Yeah. We are specifically working on one concept in Oslo, on the Oslo fjords, on express boat, the speedboats, where we're gonna take people from the city center and out in the suburb, developing new long-range concepts, which is also combined with speed. And the environmental effect is significant. If you compare with a car, you save with assuming 1,250,000 passengers a year, you save 5,000 tons per year. So it is significant, and we also got funding, and that is something that we have been good at with developing this in Norway, is to have apply for public funding when you are innovating, because it's a risk sharing model as well.
When you said 500,000 tons, did you say that?
No, 5,000.
Yeah, 5,000 tons. That's 5,000 tons of CO2 reduction in that. Yeah. Well, Heidi, I also read a number that if Europe is going to reach the Paris Accord on 1.5 degree Celsius, we need to remove 660 million tons of CO2 every year until 2030.
Yeah.
It's a huge number. It's a so big number that we don't have the fantasy to understand what that is. So what you guys are doing is one of the puzzles in the big or the pieces in the larger puzzle that actually we need to address in order to cope up with the climate challenge. How can we make 5,000 tons to be 5 million tons?
Of course, we need to scale up, definitely. And I think also from the governmental side and for everyone, we need to think less fragmented and more holistically. And that goes for when we're evaluating and taking decisions. It goes for cost, that we are looking at the total cost, both investments and operational cost. When we're looking at CO2 reduction, I think we need to look into the total project there as well, both on land and the water. And then I think also we need to look into the natural capital, the impact on land and water, etc. So I think both when it comes to the decision making and the evaluations, we need to do that. And also public funding needs also take into consideration. And if we also keep speed up then. And we could give the example on hydrogen. We need to keep the speed up here in the Nordics. Europe is moving fast. So if this is going to be large and if it's going to come timely to the market, we need to scale up.
And that is also one of the really challenging things. You know, the scaling up is challenging, but at the same time, I think if you manage to think holistic, there's no other way than scaling up fast enough.
I would like to hear your reflections on, because we in the Nordics tend to think that we are world champions in every field that we move into, every sport or whatever that is. And we also see that Europe and the rest of the world are moving probably faster than we are at this point. What can we do to speed up this?
It's a very important and big question. And I think we have a culture of collaboration. And I think we have to be impatient. I think we have to collaborate and get it going. And collaborate, that goes both across the industry, but it goes also towards for us, the client, and the government.
But it is also about you being more, how do you say, pushy over your buyers, the government, because do everybody have the knowledge that they actually need to make the right, how do you say, decisions when it comes, like you said earlier, how do we actually measure whether this is the right investment or if it's another way we should invest? So.
Absolutely, and we are spending quite a significant time on, there's a lot of success in the public-private collaboration, but I agree with you, we need to take it to the next level, talking about this bigger picture, so we can, and there we also need to collaborate exactly to get up the data, so we can take the holistic assessment, so, and continue to push, yes, absolutely.
I just have one question that I need to ask at the end, Heidi, because you're coming back, because we will have a plenary session afterwards with all the participants. For me as a citizen, what does that mean? Because I think very much end of the day, we need to change our behavior. You know, even if there are tons of sustainable ferries and also electrified ferries, what can it mean for me? What do I need to do? Will I get faster? Or my point is that right now we are in a region where we are using billions of dollars on tunnels underwater. We are probably one of the world's championship in the tunnel digging. What about moving that up, and what can it mean for me as a citizen? What how can I contribute into your equation?
I think to also bring it back to this example from Oslo, it means that you will have the possibility to travel green, but it also means it needs to be benefits for you as well. Like when you have congested roads, you can trust our services, good regularity, and also good frequency. But then also we should be prepared, all of us, to pay some premium to take care of the environment. I think that's just the way it is for all kind of public services, actually.
Great closing words, Heidi, because I think at the end of the day, we also need to contribute as citizens of, for a better future for ourselves. Thank you very much, and we will invite you back, Heidi. Stine,
that was interesting.
It is really interesting. So I think that is also the challenge, is that how can we make that public, private, citizen, large corporations, small SMEs, how can we do it all together? Our next guest is actually Ståle Hagen from KPMG. Ståle, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you.
Welcome, Ståle. Please share with us, how are you guys thinking at the KPMG regarding the sustainability journey? You also heard Heidi talk about scale and timing. What is your take, Ståle?
And I think also it's important that Ståle tells about his background, because that is a little bit different than other people's, but he's been both on the private and the public. So Ståle, please go ahead and do that as well.
Yes, well, actually, I've been working for 30 years as a politician as well. So I know the political system. and I'll also be working especially within the mobility sector. So my focus is the mobility sector with the transport and the trends within that sector. So, but of course, I know a lot of other things that we can do within sustainability and political decisions and things like that.
But well, are you to blame for your past life in the politics, Ståle? Are we hearing that?
No. I think that I'm not in a political life now, but I know the systems, and of course we can see some obstacles, quite many obstacles. We protect our democracy, but we also have a bureaucracy. Things and projects take time. When we are going to have a project in Norway or build a road, build a railway line, we will also take into account beetles, flowers, salamanders, culture protection, soil protection, neighbors. Of course, that's a part of the collaboration, and that's a part of our society. But in the end, it takes time.
But Ståle, isn't it also a question very often about the structure and the systemic thinking? Because we have had an economy for years, it's been linear, and now we have to move to a more circular economy. Is it really that the institutions and all the actors that you're working together really manage to think in circular way and also break down the silo thinking?
Yes. I think that's very important, that we have to collaborate in another way, and of course see things, it connect with each other. And we can do things quite fast in Norway if we want. We have the money and we can do the decisions. Used in this, the Olympics in Lillehammer in 1994. A lot of things will take 12, or projects will take 12, 15 years. We did it in 4 or 5 years, no problem. Because we wanted to do that, because we had a goal, like the Olympics in Lillehammer in 1994. So it's possible to do that in Norway if we want. And I think that sustainability and climate and how we can reach the goals that we have set will be possible if you're thinking in another way and maybe have another system.
But how do we break down the silos? You have an idea?
Yeah, given your past background, Ståle, what do you think can be a silver bullet here?
Well, I think the politicians, they don't have to make too many obstacles and do it expensive for people without compensating in other areas. Because if you as a politician is increasing a tax, we made a thing that's illegal.
Yes, Ståle, can I just stop you? Can I just interrupt? Are you moving around somewhere? Because we have a lot of background noise.
Yes.
No, it's quite no sounds here.
Okay.
I'm alone.
I'm sorry, then it's just us. Okay, please continue.
It's not my sound here, so I don't know. Well, I said that I think it's very important to get the companies and the society and the people with you. They have to stand together with you. But if the politicians is making obstacles or doing it very expensive to increase the taxes, for instance, then the people will not be with you. They will not stand you to reach the goals, because it will be very difficult for them to do the right sustainable decisions.
But don't you also think it's actually by time that we are honest with each other, that the way we're living like right now, and with the speed that is needed to change, it also will be a cost of us citizens and private sector and everybody actually? Yes,
it will. So it will hurt. I think it will hurt a lot, because if you see now from the election in Norway, Senterpartiet is one of the winners of the political parties. They want to reduce the tax on diesel and petrol. They want to reduce the tax on electricity, because It's people who is not so much money. You can always say that that will hurt some people. So of course that is popular. That you don't have to pay for using diesel or petrol. So that's popular, and you will get an higher popularity in the elections. So we have to find out how we can do that in this green shift, so we can maybe reduce other taxes to get incentives and ways to do that. It make it easier for people to do the right sustainable actions.
Yeah. Well, Stine had a keynote earlier this morning, Ståle, and I actually forgot that, because Stine is one of the veterans that we have in the sustainability journey, and she mentioned that sustainability moved from philanthropy to the corporate social responsibility, and her point was that we need to start planning at the core business in order to get speed into the sustainable change here. What is your experience when you are out and having conversation with customers? Has that thinking started to get some solid ground, Ståle?
Yes, I think the will is there. Everyone wants to do this. Everyone wants to have good sustainable solutions. But when they start up the projects, they meet every time some obstacles. And it's regulations, but also that they are high risk to do some of the projects. And the businesses, they don't like risks, of course. So, but maybe the regulations or the government can try to take some of that risk. Then it will be easier to make some decisions also in the companies. For instance,
I think, Ståle, that we have to be more brave, both consultants and companies and the government, because we need to look at solutions and not just look at how do we minimize, how are we less of a problem in the future, and so on. We have to see what are the new way of doing things, and then of course we have to disrupt some of the laws and regulations that's already there in the systemic thinking. But it's all together that we need to be more brave. And for instance, we have done some project where we also have brought the politicians to the table to discuss what are the solutions together with private sector and also the academia and the research councils and so on, because we need data, we need facts, and we need to use it in a proper way. Yeah,
I know. Ståle, we are getting pressure on time here, but I just wanted to share one reflection and hear your short answer to that. I tend to say that you can drag the horse to the water hole, but you're never able to force it to drink. And I think, what I hear somehow is that, well, yes, you in your conversation with your customers and enterprises and the discussion on the top management level, it is very much, well, yes, we would like to do that, but we cannot because we have some challenges and regulations. What about doing, last year Microsoft made a pledge that we will become carbon negative, Ståle, by 2030 and remove our historical footprint by 2050. We don't have a clue on how to do that, but we will have to find some solution. And that is back to Stine's point. What about being bold?
Yeah, we need to be more brave and bold. And I think, Ståle, you would need to push the governments and your clients and our clients in the future.
You have to. So thank you very much, Ståle, and we will have a plenary session. And meanwhile, I would like to welcome our next guest, Audun, on board here. Audun, you are while you're moving into the stage, I can just make the introduction and that kind of stuff. So welcome, Audun. You're from Lyse.
Yes.
Lyse is one of the fascinating companies in the region, actually, where I was, raised in Sandnes. Lyse, back in the 80s, put up a house, the first smart house at Forus. You guys were early, way early.
Were you too early?
Sometimes we were too early. Yeah. Sometimes we were a little bit late, but I think there's always this drive to do things better and to to capitalize on the assets we have. We are a huge utility company, energy and utility company, and telecom. So in between telecom and energy, there's a lot of things to be done.
Yeah, well, we are into probably on a global scale, the largest energy transition ever. You guys are playing a major role into that journey, and I believe you have gained a lot of insight, knowledge. Where are the really challenges, Audun?
The thing is that when you start a debate, it's good to have facts. So Lise got a report on where are the CO2 emissions in the south of Rogaland, and then together with Haugalandet, where are the CO2 emissions in the whole of Rogaland.
Yeah, so this is really local.
This is
area.
local because we needed to see what's special with this area, and it will be like this in the whole world. Latvia is different from Norway, and within Norway there are different regions which have different emissions and different ways of doing things. So this is very important, actually.
So you need to get the data to know where to put in where is the biggest issue that needs to be lifted forward and find a solution on.
Exactly. What should we address first, and what do we have for special advantages, competitive advantages? Where can we utilize the green transition in order to create
we need to
work
closer to the mic, please.
in order to have something to do in the future, which is also very important here.
Yeah, and then you're into something that's really important. And I was lucky to have this keynote earlier today. And if we don't manage to find the solutions that actually also are profitable for the future, we won't be able to have a sustainable development of the society. So I think that is very important, but we need also to dare and to invest. So where is Lise in that, how do you say, in that scope?
I think what we try to do is to help this region achieving their goals. At the same time, some of these things that we need to do will have a larger cost than to do nothing. And then it's all about how much are we willing to pay? What is the right timing of this? And also, who is going to pay this? Because until now, there's been a debate about should we do something? Is there a problem? Code Red is more or less been in the newspapers now, and we tend to agree on this. And then it's the next step, what should we do? And then it's how much are we going to pay, and who is going to pay, and how? Because in the end, this is a political question about what is fair and what will work. But I totally agree. We need to move. We need to move much faster, and we need to find good solutions. But not only technical solution, also solutions that makes it fair. And this is a democracy. We are very happy that this is a democracy. And the worst thing we can do is to get the majority on the fence. So we need to do things right at the same time as we have speed.
But isn't it it's still a game to choose what is actually the most perfect thing to do? I usually use the plastic example because there nobody in the world that thought about this as being a huge problem. Because when it was invented, it was the best material in the world. And it still is the best material for what it's used for. But nobody thought about how are we going to get rid of it. So I think we just need to also be more brave to dare to jump into some conclusions on what do really, in this case, we're in Norway, and it's Norway we're talking about, where do we really dare to go in front? And maybe it's the wrong path. But are Lise there that you want to push, be brave and take decision even though you don't have all the data?
We have several projects that we are working on currently. One of them is we've tried for a long time, and we're ramping it up now within biogas. Because when you look at the emissions in south of Rogaland, 28% of the emissions comes from farming. You need to do something, and biogas is one of the things that you can do and maintain agriculture. So this is important not for the renewable energy, biogas, but in order to sustain agriculture in a good way. And then the other part that we're looking into is carbon capture and from waste. And this, of course, has a cost associated to it. And it's very easy to point on who is the polluter. It's us.
Yeah.
So then the question is, should the government, should Norway pay for it? Should we do it through municipalities? What is the right balance? And I believe the technology is there. We can do this, but we need to find out the fair way of sharing the cost.
Yeah.
And I think the next few years there will be a lot of debate, and it's a political debate, and it will be very interesting. It's interesting times.
Well, what you're pointing out actually is that we need to design some new value chains and some new ecosystems around here, because currently our legacy is based on the old working models. So that is basically you're addressing, Audun. Is that correct? Is that we need to find a ecosystem around, for example, how should the polluter pay for this? What kind of regulations is needed in order to make that, and how can we lift our holistic view to see the whole value chain?
Yeah, exactly. We need to first determine what is important, what will actually make a huge contribution. At the same time, we need all the small contributions, and then we need to find the ways that it's fair. I think that Ibsen wrote quite a few things about the life lie. We have to accept the fact that this will cost more than to do nothing.
Yeah.
And when we've accepted that, we can go into how is the correct way of sharing the burden.
Yeah.
And that is actually a little bit scarier than when we stand here in Norway on the west coast, because if we look at research, Norwegian are those in the Nordic countries that really believes that the government are the one to pay for our changes. So it might be hard, harder than other places. I don't know.
But when I asked my 9-year-old son and I explained this polluter pays, he said, "Well, of course.
Yeah.
If I pollute, I need to take the burden for that." Of course, in Norwegian. So I see that the younger generations, they tend to be more open for actually paying and taking the full costs and including the costs we on the environment.
And I think that is probably because they have a more holistic view, actually, than very many of the grown-ups and those who's been in business for so many years or in governments for so many years. Because we know this is the way we used to do it. This is the value chain that we used to. And we're not opening up our spaces and look all the way behind and say, we're not going to do less of this and make less of a problem. We're going to fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that the youngsters, Stine, we two are getting into the legacy category soon. I think the youngsters are much more motivated for change. I think they are willing to walk that extra mile in order for a more sustainable future. I think. I
maybe think that they do not think it's an extra mile. Your son, they just think that's the way of doing it. It's the future.
It's not an extra mile. It's what we need to do.
It's what's
it's natural. It's natural. It's what's expected from me. And I think that we have quite a lot to learn. But at the same time, I believe we should do the right things right, so that we don't end up with too many sitting on the fence. And I think that's really important. So this is not easy, but that's why we're having this discussion.
Well, that is what they say, is that the pain of same has to be greater than pain of change. And I think that is very much the storyline behind here. Audun, thank you very much. We will have you back in the studio here while we have our last online guest here, Stine.
That's true.
Johan from Beta Mobility. Johan, when I spoke with you on the phone, you said that the biggest challenge, Rana, that we have is coordination or lack of it. Please share your thinking, Johan.
Yeah, and that actually plays really well with what Audun touched upon. I mean, my background is from startups, and I've been kind of poking at both the public and the private from different sides, trying to, roll out products. And it's interesting to me how, the capital is on the table, the intent is on the table, like we all want to make this happen, but it's really about how do we make that coordination. And I use the word coordination because I think it's about the alignment So one thing is being brave, as Stine said, but we need to also align on the goal and how to achieve it. So, and I think it's important that we understand that is the nature and the character of the problem, because if we try to throw technology at it and think of it as a technology problem, we're going to fail. If we try to think of it as an investment problem and invest in infrastructure, we're going to fail. It's really about the alignment. So I think a lot of the work that needs to go in here to achieve what we're discussing this hour is all about coordination, and then also, of course, collaboration.
Yeah, I think the last word is extremely important, cooperation, because I don't think we manage to do that coordination unless we break down the silos when it comes to partnership as well and how to collaborate.
Yeah. But Johan, you have been into the mobility business for a decade or so. You have probably had a lot of uphill walks, with your concept, your ideas. Are we moving in the right direction? Is it easier now, Johan, or is it even worse?
Oh no, it's easier, a lot easier, and a lot of that comes down to the improvement of digital infrastructure, which makes things easier. And to point to some of the positive examples, I mean, when I speak at international conferences, I always try to make a point about Entur, which I think is a phenomenal, Norwegian example of where we need to move, where you have the combination of private-public partnership. There's a political decision behind establishing it, and we're basically making digital infrastructure that new companies and transportation is standing on the shoulder of. So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. I think Entur is one of the best examples we have, but we need tons more initiatives like that, because Entur exists for people mobility. But if you look at something like transportation, which is really, making a lot more emissions, there's no data standards, there's no data sharing, there's no openness. So unless we get Entur for that as well, I mean, we only done half the work.
Yeah, but what we also experience, Johan, is that public sector is a major stakeholder when it comes to public transport, right? So that means that often we also see that public sector almost directly competition with private companies, entrepreneurs that would like to also build a value chain within the same segment. How do you see that? When instead of competing with each other, how can we have a better partnership in the future?
Oh, that is starting to happen in some places in the world. Like, in the US, Uber actually early on started collaborating with PTAs, covering the routes that were less sustainable for public transport, and then they added in. And if you look at, we hear a lot about the negative effects of scooters in Oslo, but if you look to Bærum, right outside of Oslo, it's actually working quite well, because they designed a collaboration between public transport and a private player. So if you, from the offset, actually look at, this is what we're best at, this is what you're best at, let's put our heads together. It actually works, but it requires that we actually put our thoughts in to do that planning before.
Yeah, and I think the planning before is a key take here.
Yeah, that was your main point, Stine.
Yeah, earlier today, I think it's so important, Johan, that we need to think in an earlier phase. How do we actually organize? How do we plan, instead of planning for doing less harm, planning for fixing things? So what is your take about the holistic thoughts that we were bringing on table here earlier with Heidi from Norled, that we need more the holistic thoughts about infrastructure, city, mobility, and so forth? Do you have you any thoughts?
I think part of that actually comes down to what you started on in terms of planning to be able to articulate why are we trying to achieve. I've been part of running a science fair competition for kids where we teach kids to, have an hypothesis, validate it, and document your findings. And I think we need to work the same way in mobility as well. And it's when we're articulate about what we're trying to achieve, how that is going to work, then in that way we're able to actually fit these things together. Because our conversation has been so much around, investment in infrastructure, the kind of vehicles we're buying, the routes and the contracts, but not really about, what is the effect it has on the city and how it interplays with the rest. So I think we're just missing kind of the process and the language to fit this puzzle together. We're not really discussing the outcome and effect of what we're trying to do and, where these things come together. And that's where the circularity begins, when we're able to have that discussion.
I would like to ask a question to you, Johan. My background is also, before I joined Microsoft, was entrepreneur and startups. You are a part of a bigger startup environment in Oslo called Startup Lab, and I understand that there is a lot of innovation happening with small players. How can we help them scale and piggyback those larger players here? Because I think it is also a question about scalability to reaching out on a global scale.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm on the advisory board for mobility in Startup Lab, and part of what we're trying to do there is to have some of these small companies to match them with the bigger partners, because mobility is hard in the sense that it's expensive, it's hard to get out in the market. So if we can have the larger corporations be pilot customers for these smaller startups to provide access to customers, access to fleets or assets, we're able to scale these things a lot more faster, because we don't really have we have investors in Norway, but we don't have the risk capital to make investment in huge fleets. That's why we need to foster these collaborations between small and bigger companies.
That advisory board, what kind of challenges do you see? Do we have enough for us? Do we have international for us? Are there that kind of instruments available today, or is that something that we need to build?
To be honest, I think we have too many. I mean, to the point that Stine made earlier about to actually do stuff. We've been running all of these discussions about it for so long, and I think it's really time to be better at piloting, to start running these things, because we do have the technology. It's so easy to roll out something now, but we're lacking kind of the framework to do quick tests and pilot. And I think both you and I come from technology, and actually bring some of that lean process to actually be able to do sprints and test and get data a lot more quicker than what we're doing is really where this is at.
But John, you're talking. I just have to say one thing there, because you're picking up this piloting, doing more piloting. But I feel we're doing quite a lot of piloting. But how can we scale up the piloting as well? Because that's really what's going to make the change.
I think, unfortunately, pilots have a little bit of a bad rep in city development, and because it's been more of let's show off this mobility point, let's show off this vehicle, and it's not really real tests. We're not running real experiments, and we're not iterating in the way you need to do if you run a lean process.
And probably not.
So the pilots enough. We've been running,
Johan, maybe we're not
exactly
enough in the pilots.
Totally, and I had a question the other day whether. With something like a Voi could happen in Norway or in Oslo. And I think there are multiple reasons why that could never come out of Oslo, because we don't think at that scale. We don't have the capital that goes into it. We don't have the international structures. So I think we really need to work on that things that gives us that scale, because the small scale pilots that end up in a blog post or a research report is not bringing us anywhere.
No, it's not.
So what you're saying is action, and the time is flying, Johan. Please stay with us, because we gotta invite our those previously guests, Audun and Heidi, back onto the stage. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if they can hear me. Yes, they do.
But you have to move over here then,
yes,
Rana, because we are the same kind of cohort, so we can stand together.
Yeah, because of the COVID restrictions. So please.
If the two of you can stand over there.
Yeah, Heidi, you have to stay there, behind the mic, and Audun will come here because you got your own mic, Audun.
Yep.
We just wanted to have a common reflections point, with you two and also Johan online here. What do you guys think when we have had this conversation, that we definitely see there's a challenge, or not in the future, but today? We need to do something in order to address that. What do you guys think? Is it hope? Or is it just, spending a lot of money and not moving forward at all? Basically, we're standing still. What's your, Audun?
I think the best thing is that we are now starting to discuss what's important.
Yeah.
And we actually expect a change, and we want a change. And that's the first step. So in that respect, there's a lot of hope. At the same time, it's a daunting task that we are undertaking, and we need to work together. We need to cheer for all good solutions, and we need to accept that we will do some mistakes.
Yeah.
Heidi?
Yeah, you have to be optimistic. I think if you if you're not, we are not solving it.
No.
So, and to me, it's also quite energizing that we are working on tasks that is sort of it's about people and it's about the environment. But to get it going, we also need the profit. So it's kind of what is good for business is also here good for people and the climate. But we have to step up, though, and do what we are talking about, like the holistic thinking, and also get up to speed. And we need to be, as you're saying, we need to dare to fail. If not, we are too conservative. At the same time, we need to try to find solutions that are good also in the long run, not only in the short sort of fixing.
Can I just ask a question to Johan? Johan, how do you experience the culture and the motivation? Motivation among startups. Within the mobility area.
I think the key word here is the willingness to change. Because yes, we need to improve, and yes, we need to work on all the things we're saying. But the lack of discussion I think we're having is really understanding this as a real paradigm shift. That we're actually looking at a total system change. And I think that is part of the thinking that a lot of startups bring to the table, to actually think of a whole new operations model, a whole new business model, a whole new network model. And even though a lot of these companies are not going to solve that themselves, I really hope that can bring some inspiration to the discussion that, we're able to solve some of these problems in complete different ways than what we're set up for.
Yeah. Well, here we have two companies that both have sustainability in the core, or what you're doing and how you're planning and how you're also planning to earn your money in the future. So that is the most important, I think, to really manage to scale up. But I would just like to bring you into a visualization. Because if we were living somewhere else than Norway, looking into Norway, Johan has been talking about all the startup environments. It's huge in Norway, a lot of technology. We're really strong. I look at you from Microsoft. And you guys, and a lot of companies now, and a lot in private sector really are taking sustainability into the core. And we do have a government that people in the rest of the world are looking at us as so wealthy, so rich, but still we're moving so slow. What are your thoughts about that? You think they look at us from the outside and think, why do not Norway accelerate faster?
It's always like this, that it's easy to point a finger on someone else.
Yeah.
So I think we point finger at China and they point a finger at us. At the same time, I think that when we succeed with the electric ferries and hydrogen ferry, then that can be exported as one of the important parts that we do in developing technology. At the same time, I believe also that the business models, the new business models that we need to create in order to get things moving can also be exported.
Yeah.
And the last thing that is political and my own opinion is that there's something wrong about being so rich and using so much pointing fingers at others that doesn't have anywhere near what we do. So I think it's too simple to say that we have an electric ferry, you can use that ferry in 100 years when you can afford it. I really think that this is not a climate change only, it's also about poverty and equal quality.
And equal possibilities,
equal
possibly.
Possibilities. So it's a huge discussion, but let's take one step at a time.
Why I brought it on is because it's the UN General Assembly this week, and it started off with the General Secretary, Guterres, challenging the developed countries, the wealthy, to help the developing countries, but not only with money, but actually with doing something with ourselves. So we are the big spenders. We are. How can we actually?
It is actually mind thinking. Johan, just jump in whenever you would like, because you're not here physically, and digitally attendees tends to be ignored. So please just interrupt us. My point. It was actually quite strong reading when that Danish newspaper on the first page wrote that, "Dear Norway, if with the wealthiness we have, if we are not able to move towards this sustainable green change, how can everybody else do that? It is just spot on. Is that we have the engineering resources, we have the commercial thinking, we got all the dots, but we yet fail to connect them.
Strong enough, because a lot of things is happening that is good.
That's right.
So we have to
be
a little bit positive
sure,
as well.
Sure.
A lot of good, but we need more.
Heidi, how are you thinking around that? Connecting those big dots together.
This is a really, truly important big question. But I think we need big, hairy goals. And looking south also in Europe, they're putting loads of money into this. We need to prioritize what should be what our most important contribution also when it comes to problem to solve, competence to build, and competence and capacity to export. But then it is good to be challenged to do things sort of even smarter. I think it's a good blending on the entrepreneurs, kind of the sort of newcomers, and the more old, like Norled, been there for 160 years. We kind of need, it's a good blending.
It is.
Then we need to be very holistic again and have a good mindset when we're going out in the world also.
I definitely agree with you. Johan, this is a call to you. How can we blend even more, better to scale with new ideas, startups, with solid 100, 200 years old companies that we have into the Norwegian industry?
That are innovative.
That are forward-leaning. Johan, I would like to hear your thoughts here.
Let me first just add to your list of things that we actually can do good here in Norway, because I think you left out a really important part, which is our trust and transparency between private and public and between companies. When I talk to colleagues in the US and describe how we're able to work and actually share data between companies or how we are able to work with government, and that's not just Norway, also in Europe, it really tells me something about these kind of societal changes that we're facing right now might very well come out of Europe and not China or the US. So I think I would really like to see Europe and our startup ecosystem stand on the shoulders of that strength and not compete on what China and the US is going to be best at.
Yeah. Then Johan, you really bring us into the EU Green Deal, because what's actually the EU Green Deal is all about is that it's not enough governmental money to do the changes that we need to reach the SDGs and the Paris Agreement. So we need the private capital to move to more green investments. So EU is really pushing us, because now we make the taxonomy, we make the rules of what is sustainable and what is not. So it's just not about greenwashing either. It's core of the business, like you are standing here, and as the startups are trying. So everything is moving the right direction, I think. It's my personal view, but too slow and not with the view that is holistic enough. Like Johan was talking about the collaboration and the partnership and coordinating. And
so the blending, as you mentioned, Heidi, because I think it is something new, something borrowed, something old. It is the blend that we need to mix this together. So actually we can get a really empowerment, and also around how can we use the technology to empower human ingenuity. That is the scalability that I believe that we are into. And we have done it before. We did it in the offshore. We did it in the maritime. We did it into the fish farming and that kind of areas. And we just need to move that into the sustainability dimension now. So I'm positive, even that I may hear sometimes negative, but I would like to see even more job creation. Johan, this is back to you. I would like to see your community of entrepreneurship blended by solid, industry, and I think that combination can be a great combination.
But I think also what we looking at now and what we're seeing in the whole nation now is the cooperation between the huge companies as well. So even they are almost competing on some issues, they go together, they cooperate, and they try to find solutions. Because the problems that we're going to face is too large for one single company or one single institution to solve by themselves. So that is also a quality that we do have here in Norway that is quite unique.
And I also think that customers, we demand change.
Yeah.
We want to do the right things. We want companies to do the right things right.
Yeah.
And one thing is for certain, that when customers, when they want something, business will shift very fast. That's been proven over and over again.
Yeah.
So I think in the end, it's also up to all of us to ask for the right things and to do the right things.
Yeah. I would like to I will ask you a question, Heidi. The ferries that you guys are building, how are they received abroad? What do you guys get of feedback there?
Yeah, we are spending quite a lot of time on sharing what we have learned and experienced, because when you are learning, you are both learning on the good and also learnings. So, and we are sharing a lot, both when on the electricity, but also on the hydrogen, in many sort of forums and also towards EU projects as well. So the things are really starting to moving also other places to a much larger extent. So that's also why we need to be timely on getting this out of Norway and sort of build this as some sort of really use what we have learned as for export. And I wanted to add then also to the conversation earlier that I think also then transparency is very important, because back to you, that the customer would like to do the right things. It's a tough one for the customer. So I also think that starting with being transparent on environmental reporting and all of that, which is really sort of coming, but also make it easier accessible for the customer to do the right choice.
And that's actually a challenge for Johan and the startups now.
Yeah.
I want to know if it's better for me to buy a T-shirt, a chicken, or a mango. It's impossible for me to know what is the greatest impact.
Yeah.
And I think that we as customers, we would really like to know.
Yeah, and that is really, really important, because all customers wants to know more. And what's happening is that if they don't get enough information, they reject. They are backing off. So, for instance, since I work in KPMG, we're trying to give the best advice to the companies and to the governments and so on. Really important is, like you said, understand the customers. And there it comes to speed, because we need to be more sustainable in a much faster way. And as I've said like 100 times today, it's not about doing less. It's not about being less of a problem. It's about finding new ways of doing things together.
Stine, we are running out of time.
We are.
1 hour, it's too short to discuss these major topics. Johan, thank you very much for your attendance. We are glad that you can join us. Thank you very much, Heidi from Norled, and also Audun from Lyse, and also to Ståle, who couldn't attend the comment session that we had here now. So thank you very much, and thank you for listening to these thoughts.
Thank you very much.